Welcome to The Pluck. This is a show about how we write, record, and play music for plucked string instruments. That's guitar, bass, banjo, mandolin, anything with strings you can pluck. Today on The Pluck, I'm joined by Michael Kramer, a guitarist and composer whose work balances structure and spontaneity, the cerebral and the soulful. Now based in Nyack, New York, after years in the Washington, D.C. scene, Michael draws on musical, scientific, and philosophical influences to craft music that feels as alive and dynamic as the questions it poses. His trio, Superstring and the Cosmic Vibrations, and his co-led large ensemble, KW Big Band, are laboratories for a creative vision shaped by daily practice, deep listening, and a fascination with how complexity emerges from simplicity, whether that's in particle fields, groove, or shared silences. He's currently working on new recordings with both projects, continuing to explore sound as a way of being in dialogue with the cosmos. So I'm excited to dig into how he thinks about structure, feel, and mystery when he writes, records, and plays. Michael, great to see you again.
Wow, man. Thank you, Jonathan. It's amazing to be here. And hello to everybody who's tuning in to The Pluck. And thank you so much for that introduction. That was lovely.
Yes.
I appreciate all that. Thank you.
So where are we catching you in the beginning of the week? So for everyone out there, we're recording here on a Monday. So
Monday.
Where are we catching you this time of the week?
Yeah, the beginning of a work week. I try to keep as normal, quote unquote, as schedule as possible, and try to keep as much space on the weekends at this stage for my kids who are growing. So now that they're at school, I just take the opportunity to settle into a routine, tend to have these kinds of like seasonal routines, or sometimes they're even shorter, like months at a time or a month at a time. But I usually try to define some parameters for myself, like for a day and a week and a month, and try to have kind of like I don't know if goal is the right word, but just try to have like a something that I'm working towards, like maybe a project, and try to let that, whatever I'm working on at the time, whether it's an upcoming gig or some composition project, some set of tunes, try to let that structure how my day works. So this morning I actually had the pleasure of spending some time at the piano. I have a weighted keyboard in my studio downstairs, and I did that, and I spent a little bit of time on the guitar, and then tried to set up the space to talk to you. That's what was going on today. So, so that's more or less where you're catching me.
Right. For everyone listening, before we started recording, we were troubleshooting and setting up the mics and the angles and all sorts of stuff. But there's a lot that happens in production. Yeah. So very good.
Yeah.
Very good. So you said you were playing some piano this morning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not like a professional level player at all. I'm very much like a beginner level player, but I probably similar to most people who are really serious about music, and especially people who are interested in digging into scores, or are interested in generally in composition or orchestration, and especially people who've gone to music school like myself. I have an undergraduate degree in music, so I had exposure to the piano in all of those different contexts, even before I started to I actually got a full-sized weighted keyboard inherited, actually, I should say, from my uncle, who my uncle was my mother's brother, and he was the only other professional musician in my family. He passed away a couple of years ago in 2023, and I have his keyboard now. So it's there's something about like that instrument in particular that I have this like physical connection. And we were fairly close, and we would talk, about music. He was always wanting to get a recording from my last gig, or hear what I've been writing, or we would talk about all kinds of recording, Brad Mehldau bootlegs and, Keith Jarrett records and stuff. That was kind of his bag. And so it's cool to sit down at the piano and have all of those angles, those aforementioned angles, the composition, just working through tunes, working through harmony, playing melodies, playing voicings, looking at a score. I have Mahler 1 and 2, Dover. It was like I paid like more in shipping than I did, so I'll pop that open and just like try to, look at some verticality or understand something about that at the piano. But I also have like that familial connection with him, which is a wonderful thing to just kind of like let yourself feel that, that connection.
Do you remember when that first experience with him in your life?
Man, yeah, I actually do. Now that you ask, I do remember. My mother got me this. I don't remember how old I was, but I was probably like 10 or 11 when I got my first guitar from a pawn shop. My mother got it from a pawn shop, and it was an Epiphone, like with 2 humbucking pickups, like one in the bridge and one in the neck, and it was like a cream, and it had the head of it was like a Jackson, kind of like shredder looking, like what I mean.
It's like angled and thin.
Yeah. It wasn't so thin, but it was like that style. Yeah, maybe Jackson isn't the right, but it was like triangular. It was really cool guitar, and a gorilla like little amp, and so probably it was Thanksgiving. Like Thanksgiving was at my mom's house, so like all my cousins would come, and he came over, and it came up that I had this guitar, and like he was like, all right, man, you got to take me down to the basement and like show me, like I got to see it. And I couldn't even like play anything yet, but he was just like, he was just kind of there and like encouraging and sometimes discouraging, but like out of love,
Yeah.
Like, what I mean? Like this is, he had strong opinions about like what was, just like any musician probably, like certain things that I was listening to that he dug, and certain things that he didn't,
Do you remember what he didn't like that you played for?
Yeah, man. Not too much. Like I wouldn't say like he never liked. I think that like at that time he was like one of the first people to, when I played, when I would play, either like play music for him or play music actually like with him, he was one of the first people in my life to be like, you gotta like take the blues seriously. In fact, he was the guy who showed me he showed me how to do this. He showed me how to do the. He like showed me how to do it. And he was probably doing it with like one finger, but So like whatever I played on the guitar, like at first for him, it wasn't that, And he was like, "Listen, man, you gotta like, this is where you gotta begin and end, and everything's gotta funnel back to that." And so I think, looking back on that, I was like very lucky to have that in my life. And so, that's something that comes into the conversation, the fold, especially with the kind of music that I've dedicated my life to, which is very different from the kind of music that you've dedicated your life to, right? Like, I don't want to make assumptions about you.
No.
Sorry, but my perception of you is this like really high level classical guitar musician with commercial skills, and you're totally like happening and all that stuff.
Well, what's interesting, and like even like with classical guitarists, I know a lot of classical guys and gals who have started have like a lot of blues influence.
Sure,
like
sure.
just like playing around when we were younger in middle school and high school, with our guitars, we might be like studying classical music, but like we're wanting to like try out these like Jimmy Page riffs and stuff, and or BB King and Robert Johnson things, and and just playing around with that stuff. So like my dad in particular was really heavy into blues. He loved the blues, and he played the guitar for fun, and he taught me my first lick on the guitar. It was a little bluesy thing that he came up with. So it's like,
beautiful.
So yeah. So like,
so my assumptions are all wrong. Of course.
It's we wear I guess multiple masks,
Totally. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
No, totally. And that's beautiful. And I guess like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, because even if you're very serious about classical guitar, you're still kind of playing a guitar, and through the guitar you're probably going to encounter, like, how can you not? I guess how could you not encounter
right, or be
Robert
curious.
Johnson,
Yeah,
or be curious about it. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
Totally. But
So
it was definitely one of those things, though, for me that, like, sorry to interrupt, but
no, sorry.
yeah, it was like definitely one of those things that when that would come up, like later in my development, when a teacher or an older musician on a gig would say, you got to take the blues seriously, like, or something about holding a space for that music in your development, or in your concept of sound and harmony and melody and articulation and all of that. Like it rooted back to the kind of like the earliest experiences that I had in music, really, and in that instrument. So like it made sense from that perspective. It wasn't like, you have to get touched like 7 or 8 times really before something makes sense. So probably when my uncle said that to me in the beginning, way back when I was 11, I was probably like, that's not what like Incubus sounds like, or which is actually kind of jive too, because they totally take the blues, like they're totally playing some serious blue, which you understand later. They like you understand, like that's their like accent on, on the on that history, like so. But anyway, sorry to cut you off.
No.
Yeah.
So okay. So like this blues stuff was a real big inspiration from your uncle.
Yeah.
At that
and later
young age.
jazz records too, for sure. Like later we would talk about mostly like jazz records, but yeah. But I actually remember it's funny. I think about them all the time, but I don't think some of the stuff I don't think about very often, and it's cool to kind of take an opportunity to think about it.
Of course.
One thing, he would say stuff like this that like would, I don't know, like kind of, I'll just say what this one thing that he said to me one time, like early on. He was like, we were talking about swing music, and he was like, man, to me, Willie Nelson swings. And I was like, I didn't know what to do with that. At the time, we were just talking about what swing was. And I guess I was thinking about swing from a, not like, I was thinking about swing from a more, triplet subdivisions and African derived rhythms and, music that came up through these New Orleans ensembles into big band era, into all kind of then all the kind of constantly spreading out through the American canonical jazz tradition. And so when he said that, I was like, I just didn't know what to do with that. I didn't like judge it, but I think that like he kind of thought about things a little bit differently and a little bit out of the box like that. And I think what he meant maybe by like Willie Nelson's swings is that there's like pocket and groove and like propulsion and like a rhythmic like feel and vibe, and just in terms of like placement, like not to be like sometimes these words can sound woo woo, right? Like what does it mean by feel? Like Willie Nelson as like a rhythm player, and like also the way that he like sings, there's a feel, there's a rhythmic feel and a placement. Like if you imagine a grid, the way that he's articulating with his voice and emphasizing with his breath and playing his rhythm patterns with his guitar, it creates this like forward motion, even if the tempo sags or takes off, which some of those records do both. And I think that's more what he meant. So we would kind of talk about things like that, and he would say things to me that were like that, and I think that he wanted me to like think about stuff like that, and not. He also definitely wanted me to not like take as written, like wrote, like this is the 10 commandments of like everything that I was getting from music school, because he didn't go to music school, so he was like. I think he was trying to kind of get it, get in the back door and be like, you don't need all of that necessarily. Like, don't throw it out, but like really develop your own opinions and thoughts and visceral connection. That's what's more important. So,
yeah. Oh, that's a new one. Willie Nelson. For
swings. Yeah.
Willie Nelson swings.
He said that to me.
Yeah.
I didn't say that per se. I don't want to be like quoted as saying that, but he said that to me. So.
Right. Yes. Michael's uncle said that.
Yeah.
Do you know what song or songs in particular?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what he was thinking about. I think he was just listening to Willie at that time. I'm not even sure what, but
do you think he meant swing or did he mean groove?
Yeah, that's what I was kind of trying to say. I think he was. I don't think he was literally talking about Spang-a-lang. know.
Yeah.
I was thinking he was talking about groove and placement and like feel. Really, like feel.
Mm-hmm.
I think he was trying to get at like what is the. I think he was trying to say like swing isn't like something that's technical. Like swing is something to him anyway. It is something that's moving forward. It has a forward motion. It has groove weight. It has a propulsion through time. And so it was like his way of thinking about it. Which was cool. It was beautiful.
I love that. So let's fast forward a little bit. So that was, you were speaking. You started guitar around 10 or 11. Would you say?
Yeah. I mean, not seriously, but I wanted that was my thing. Was like there were a couple of kids that I was going to school with. We were going to start a band.
as we do, at that
as
age.
We do.
Yeah.
So I bugged my. I actually wanted to play drums. And I bugged my mother, and I grew up in a townhouse in Germantown, Maryland. So like I think she would have like otherwise, she would have gotten me drums, but like she was just like, there's no way that's gonna like work, So and I think that the reason why she got me that electric guitar was because she was hip to the fact that like if you didn't plug it in, it wasn't very loud at all. You know?
Right. You can have some peace and quiet, which you want. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I didn't start getting serious about it until probably a couple of years after that, until I was like 13 or 14.
So like high school?
And yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. Yeah. And I had, at that point, I had a teacher, and I'd had two really important teachers early on. And one was Jerry Lynn, and the other is Jerry Kunkel. And to this day, two of like the most important people in my life, you know, those early guitar teachers, right? Like they were like, you know, it wasn't just about guitar. Actually, with Jerry Lynn too, he got me reading. I resisted it like really hardcore. Like not out of like, I don't know, it just wasn't what I was into. What I was more interested in, which is something that he also helped me a lot with, was just like learning tunes, like off the radio or off of CDs. And he actually, you know, maybe the first couple times we had lessons together, he would, you know, figure out whatever song I wanted to learn. And I had a CD, and he would like figure it out and then write out the tab. And then maybe after like a couple weeks, he was like, okay, like here's what I'm doing. Like when I'm figuring out, like here's what I'm trying to listen for. Like I'm trying to listen for a bass line, or I'm trying to listen for, if it's a guitar, I'm trying to listen for are they open chords, or are they chord shapes that I recognize? You know, like I remember, for example, I wonder if I can play it. Like I remember wanting to learn, for example, you know, whatever this is.
Yeah. Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Yeah. So like that, and then the bridge
under the bridge by Red Hot. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's like the chorus has like this F, like 2 to 1, and then it's 5 chord, like a B chord, but it's this D shaped triad. You know, and then you know, in the beginning was like the C major shape, but for D up there, and then the F sharp, but like the E shape like that. So he like showed me that kind of stuff. He was like, you know, I can like hear the voicing. I hear like the shape, and then I find the root note. I recognize kind of the interval structure. And then he showed me that for that you know, that the Friends bird claw. Like I never watched Friends, but people told me like that Phoebe said that, right, about this is the bird claw. You know, yeah. So like he kind of showed me that the D shape, but for B. So he would like show me kind of how to use my ear, and also the logic of the guitar. I guess like the guitar logic and the shapes that you find, and that was like a huge step, you know. So he was like really great at that. And then when I went later in high school, I studied with that guy Jerry Kunkel. He was the only like non-family guest when I got married at my wedding. He's
wow,
really important person in my life, and he was an incredible guitar teacher, but again, like very serious about reading. He also, another thing that he did that he introduced to me was like very early on, like one of the first couple lessons. He gave me some arrangements that were written out of like Tenderly and Yesterdays, and they were like chord melody solos that were written out. So not only was it like reading, but it was like the voicings of the way that the melody was voiced and harmonized under. So because he could tell at that point I was fairly adept with the triad structures and the pentatonic structures, all the way up the neck and how they connect. And I probably wasn't like aware of the caged system, but like I knew all the shapes already. So he probably told me like, oh, there's a way to think about it. Like it's called caged, and that's that. And then he was the one who kind of introduced the upper structure harmonies and more complex support of a melody. And then the notion of like actually having melodic movement that you're supporting. It's almost like this notion of like chords are an illusion in some ways. Really, it's just like contrapuntal. Everything's just counterpoint. I don't know how how you think about that or whatever. But we talked about that. We would talk about stuff like that, and so that was maybe actually both of those guys got me listening to jazz records though. And there was some like, I don't know what it was. There's just some push towards, okay, you're serious about music, like Hendrix and Jimmy Page and Clapton, and I also knew some of these other guitar players like I was mentioning from Incubus, like Mike Eisinger, and was a really creative guitar player,
Yeah.
And I knew like some of the stuff that made their playing work, and I also knew a little bit about Elmore James, and some of the cats that like I heard about because Hendrix, or Jimmy Page. Like I was already into it enough to like kind of figure out that question of like, okay, you really like Hendrix. Well, what was inspiring to Hendrix, and then investigate like what is that, and then really kind of figure that out. So that's how I found Elmore James and really started to take Dylan seriously, because as like a 13-year-old, Dylan, it's almost like, is this guy joking? When you don't have the ear for it,
right?
And we didn't have the ear for like that kind of folk music either. So it was almost like this alien thing. And then, it was like, oh, Hendrix like really loves Dylan, and actually All Along the Watchtower is a Dylan song. And then you're like, oh yeah, that, you kind of spend some time with it, and then you let it in, and then you realize the depth of it from there. But yeah, so both of those guys were that was where I was going with it. Both of those guys were pushing me towards like, from that, like Charlie Christian and Wes Montgomery and Miles and the Joe Pass Virtuoso records and Train, like early Train and Cannonball. And for whatever reason, I'm not really entirely sure why, I loved that music. Maybe that was why. But for whatever reason, it was like, oh, you're serious about music. You're actually taking this stuff home. You're practicing. So this is the music that people who are serious about music listen to and study and play. And it wasn't like in my household or anything like that.
It was on your own.
It was something that came at that time, and then I got really serious about it. It was introduced later, and through that way. So yeah.
About what year are we talking here? If you don't mind.
Oh, good question. Like 2000. I was born in 88. So we're talking like 2001, 2000 through 2003 was like
okay.
I guess I was, however old I was then. Starting to actually get like serious, and like a notion of like serious about listening. That was another thing too that was like a big deal. Was I probably spent more time, I think this is true now too, I probably spent more time listening to music than I have like playing music. And back then that was really important. It was never like I mentioned my guitar teacher giving me the transcription kind of chord melody things, which again I don't remember what they were. I wish I did. But they were probably from a book, like a Mel Bay book, and
a compilation.
Maybe they were Barry Galbraith. I feel like that's what they were. They were Barry Galbraith chord melodies. But it was never just that. It was always like, here's this and here's a recording, and like check out, like don't even worry about reading this thing until you like get the thing in your ear and in your body. So it's like that was kind of like really deeply instilled, and I kind of already had that. I used, like, that was one of my favorite pastimes as a kid. My parents had like 2 or 3 CDs. One of them was Paul Simon Graceland, and then there was like a Peter, Paul and Mary. That was like their vibe. My dad liked this band called the Fairport Convention, which is a lesser known like British kind of folk rock. Great band too. So I would listen to those records just like on repeat, and like have some snack and like a football, and just like throw the football up in the air and down, and just listen to the whole like Graceland album. And so that whole listening thing, when my teachers at that time were like, hey, here's something to work on, and then here's the record. Like, I took the record part really seriously. I took the listening part really seriously. And that's something that I noticed in some students, which is, I don't think it's a bad thing, but it's like some students, they want to do before they have something in their body. And again, I don't think it's a bad thing, but I don't know too much about this either, but I have heard like, the Indian classical music tradition, like they don't even let them touch. It starts like really young, and it's like really regimented, and they don't even let them like play or like touch anything for like years. They're just singing stuff at them, and having them sing it back, and it's like listening. It's like, this is, you're gonna get this in your ear, and you get this in your body.
Yeah.
And so I guess I for whatever reason, I kind of had a little bit of that. And even to this day, you kind of asked me about my like morning routine, and it's more listening. It's like more what I'm trying to check out. I'm like really into the Carl Orff First Symphony right now. Nice. I love that shit. I love that shit. It's like, I don't know anything about it, but it just sounds amazing, man. And listening to those symphonies too, they like progressively get like weirder, but that's like a big part of my day, and it's something that you don't necessarily want to admit. You want to be like, oh, I'm doing all this stuff, like, right. Yeah, I'm like writing all the time. Like most of the time I'm not. I'm like just sitting there and just like listening and being like, wow, that is amazing,
How do you listen? Let me back that up. Do you listen any differently now than you did then? Or I'm sure you do. And if so, how? How do you listen differently?
That's an amazing question, dude. Yeah, I kind of got, I have another story for you, man, to kind of answer that question.
Yeah.
So like when I was in college, and I won't say this person's name because if I did, it would like really embarrass them, but he's a good friend. And somebody who was, when I was in college at Maryland, there was this group of people that we were really serious about bebop music, and like in a dogmatic way. And I think it was very healthy for me at that time. That was I was only like listening to recordings that were made between like 1942 and 1964. It's like really like specific. It's like anything after that is like not, and like, maybe like if you're going to listen to something, listen to Louis Armstrong, like that's okay. It's okay to listen to Louis Armstrong. But, so like that's the group of friends. And I remember like going to get some food with, one of my friends from this group, this peer group and get into his car. And it's just like he turns on his car and he's blasting Pardon Me by Incubus, that band Incubus, which is a band that I loved. And dude, the look on his face, man, was like I saw him naked or something. It was like I was like, bro, I love that record, man. Like, you know, man, like, and I was like, turn that shit up, man. Like, let's do it, you know? Yeah. And that was like a really crucial point where I kind of realized at that point I think it was good. Again, it was healthy, but I had kind of developed this like academic, you know, every time I listened to music, I was trying to think like, okay, what's the key center? Like, what are the, you know, analyzing, like gathering all the characteristics of each piece. And I think, and I do listen to music that way quite frequently, at least once a day for one record, or like one tune. And I think that like the deconstruction and the character analysis, sounds so silly to say, but I think that that's a really important part of like my development and my everyday. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. But like that experience, it definitely viscerally connected me back to that, like listening to just it's almost like the pure like pleasure of the experience. Like it's one of those things that you can go deeply into a flow state, which is another kind of thing. It's like, why are we doing this, like, at all, right?
Right.
You know?
Right.
Why? What is the point? Like, what is really the point? And that's the point for me. One of the, you know, is that it's like getting into just a flow state where what I mean is like it's almost like time is not there. Time is not there, and all that's there is your sensory experience and your consciousness, even in a sense, you know, just like aware of this, like aware of existence or whatever. Mm-hmm. And at that time, you know, you're kind of leveraging this like this auditory stimulus to push you into the present moment. And that really is how I learned how to listen to music as a kid. It's like I could listen to that even to this day. I can listen to Graceland. It's like one of the primal artifacts of my life is like that record. Mm-hmm. And I could just immediately just like fall into it, and time isn't there, which is kind of, you know, there's some trade-offs, right? Like if, you know, if I get some groceries or something, I'm not going to put that
right, because you get lost, right?
I get lost in the moment. I really will. And my wife like is totally aware of this, of this thing of like, you know, that I have, can't have music on in the background. Like it's not like a background thing. I'm actually trying to work on that, because I'm trying to work on doing that, because I think that when you do put music on in the background, like for example, people who work with music, there's something to that. I think it moves. It kind of creates like a forward motion and a flow, mm-hmm. if you can have it there. But it's hard for me, like when I turn it on, I definitely like my nervous system is like attuned to like, you know, zoning in on it. It's like,
right.
That's going to be the center mm-hmm. of my focal thing. What were we talking about? I can't. Did you ask me something? No, this is awesome.
No, it's good. It's good. I was talking about the question I was asking is how you listen differently now than you did before.
Yeah, so that's kind of it. Like that experience of like, you know, like that I had with my friend in the car. It was like, you know, like this facade that we're pushing up. It's like we can. You know, it's a beautiful thing to hold space of being like really serious about really, you know, specific type of music and dedicating your life to that. But it's okay, right? To have this other thing, like if you're just deeply viscerally connected, right? So those two ways are listening now as a professional. Obviously, like I can. You know, kind of even going back into my guitar teacher, Jerry Lynn, what he showed me of if I'm listening to a guitar, you know, you're just kind of collecting data, like you're collecting information mm-hmm. about like the the way it sounds and how it sounds, like the production, like how it was recorded, the like what is using heavy strings or light strings, is using kind of a pick are they using, what types of harmonies are they playing, like these are just like characteristics and like information that you're gathering, and because you have like trained your ear, you can identify these things, and they can like inform your like cognitive picture of why that music sounds like it does. But as a kid, it was like all about that flow state of just like turning on the record. I didn't even know what it was called, but that's what the experience was. It's like an optimal experience of just turning it on and just like you're not thinking at all. You're just there.
Interesting.
And so I try to incorporate both, both of those ways. There's gradients, so it's not just two, it's not binary or anything, but
right.
I try to incorporate all of that. I try to, like, somebody hit me I wasn't really aware of Kate Bush,
Yeah.
and somebody hit me to Kate Bush. And so I haven't listened to any Kate Bush yet, but I have it like queued up, I'm just going to turn it on and be like, do I dig this, or like what,
right.
Just like, is it doing it or is it not, but I'll probably also go back and, listen to Coltrane transitions again and try to figure out how did that magic happen,
So you still listen to old stuff, and you're still like wondering, like,
oh, totally,
yeah, like
totally, yeah. But there's like layers, right? There's the physical layer, I think, which is like your ability to like play and execute, and like your kind of the physical layer is the things that are like grounded in your body, that are about music, and that's in your ears, and your ears can have a physical dimension in how they're open or not. So that's kind of a part of that. So that has to be exercised in a day. Then there's also this sort of like organizational cognitive layer, which is a different layer, right? Which is like all of the things that all of the tools that we use, music theory, for example, being one, like paradigmatic, is that a word? Like one paradigm, to make like sense. Other people have other things, right? Like I love the example of Holdsworth, which Alan Holdsworth, if anybody doesn't know, he had his like own unique, that he invented this, like his own notation system. And essentially these break down to, modes, whole tone, the various diminished modes, Dorian, basically every whole half, he basically put it in that, all of that, he reduced to a Dorian thing, and he used this like X notation for that. But so that, like, it's theory, but it's like its own way, like its own cognitive organization of music. So that's another layer, as distinct from the physical layer, which is like executing the ideas. But then there's this other layer, which is like, that's like connected into like your like breath and the singing quality. And this is the quality, the breath and the spirit world too, I think, that it's the things that are pushing you towards that flow state. And this is where the phrasing comes from. And this is the layer when you listen to something and it really is like resonating with you and it's pushing you into that like optimal place. That's that, right? That's like the breath and the emotional, the ability to like tug on your feelings.
Yeah.
And I think that those are three distinct layers. And so when you're listening, it's cool. And when you're listening, and also when you're playing, it's cool to kind of isolate these layers, you know, whether you're warming up or whether you're practicing or whether you're performing.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not performing. You don't want to be like, you know,
Like performative.
Performative. Yeah, you don't want to
Yeah.
be performative.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well said. But like, it's cool to like isolate those layers, but it's also cool to kind of come and play with putting them together. So when, you know, this is a very long way to say this. Like, I don't think that there's one way, or there should be just like one way of listening to music, you know. And the distinct thing of like when I was a child, it was much more about like the flow. It was only about the flow state because I didn't have any information yet.
Yeah. Right.
But now, you know, there's these other layers that I can listen to. So sometimes I'm listening for that. Like, where is the phraseology of Train? You know, I was just talking to somebody about that record, Transitions. This incredible record. The take, and there's this moment, like, I don't know exactly when it happens, but it's like, this is like a 15-minute piece of music. And there's this moment like 3/4 of the way through where, you know, it's the quartet. It's Elvin, Jimmy Garrison, McCoy Tyner, and Train. And that quartet had this, it's one of the most full groups in terms of those three layers, like the physicality. You know, they're all such physically competent, technical players. That organizational construct too. They're all such like cerebral players at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that they play together as a group, but then the phrasing too, and especially that like 8-bar oceans of waves, the way that they're. And there's this moment in like at like 10 minutes in where Train has been playing. He's continuing to play, and everybody's playing so hard, and then he just like, it's almost like he's like goes into this like whale song thing, like he's like searching for something, and you know that it's because he's like, it's that singing part, it's that breath part, he's searching for something that he doesn't know how to get to with the organizational and the physical. And so the only way that he can do it is, it's almost like, and it's crazy, and it's so vulnerable, and it's so amazing. I don't even know. I mean, he's like up in his altissimo, and he's like pushing pushing the pitch into this like, it's a really incredible thing to listen to. But yeah, I mean, when you listen to that piece of music, you can, there's so much there to unpack in terms of technique. Mm-hmm. There's also so much there to unpack in terms of organization and intellect. And there's also so much there to unpack in terms of the phrasing and the spirit and the breath. And I think it's really important to turn that record on and almost like the optometrist, right? You put on your like one lens, and then you try another, then you try another, and you know, try to listen to it with the beginner's mind, you know, but also try to listen to it, you know, analytically,
right?
If you hear something in there that you're just curious about what the content is, transcribe it, you know. But you don't have to do like one thing. I think to be a complete human being, you want to explore all of that, I think.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It feels like a spectrum of some kind. Like as you're describing it, that when you said gradient, I like that when it's like a gradient thing, and that it's not binary. It's not just organizational, and it's not just, you know, flow, but like there's this kind of, I feel like this kind of spectrum. But is it, you know, is it really just one way or the other, or can you just have it all at once?
Yeah, I think like optimally, like when you perform, if you're a performing musician, right? Like that's what I think Charlie Parker meant when somebody asked him, like, what are you playing on rhythm changes? And he just says, I'm just playing B flat. And I think that, of course he knows that he's not just playing B flat. Like, of course he knows that. But I think that that's what he means. Like when you go to play and actually share, yes, I think you're melding all three of those layers: the physical, the intellectual, and that spiritual thing. This is something that, the kind of this trinity is something that's it's like foundational to like the human psyche somehow in ways that are so obvious that I'm not even going to say it. Totally not a religious guy, by the way. I'm like totally not religious. But, I mean, if you look at like, I'd actually heard recently in an interview with an amazing drummer that this drummer was saying like everything is in three. Like in fact, if you listen to like birdsong, like even the birds tend to like repeat their phrases in groups of three, and like just the way that nature organizes itself in terms of threes. But
threes, yeah.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I don't know if that's like really scientifically valid or anything, but it's a beautiful thought, and and it is true certainly that organizing things for the human psyche in threes. There's something about that that's almost seems just like it's like a natural order of our experience. But yeah, to your question is like, can you have the physical, the cognitive, and the spiritual in at the same time? Yes, I think absolutely that's what you do when you're performing, or that's what an artist does. I think when they're performing is they're in a way that's encapsulated. All of those things are the driving force, where the interface is their whatever they're doing, they're playing or singing or. But what's driving them is this kind of union or marriage of these three layers of their technique, their concept, and their phrasing.
Would you say could this define like a great musician or great player? Can you have one without the other?
That's a really interesting question. I think that I don't know if it's consequential like that, like there's examples of people that try to see if I could think of a good example of somebody who we might call great, that is more. I mean, certainly there's examples of people that we hold to the highest regard that are maybe tending more towards just having physical virtuosity,
right,
and having less of like or at least overtly like less like organizational like concept, and maybe but I don't know if there's like a causal thing of like that. Seems to me to be such a subjective thing, right? Like certainly we all can agree on Segovia of the greatest guitar players ever, right? Like or whatever, the greatest. Certainly there's something in the zeitgeist, but I don't know if it's a metric. I think it's more of a like a philosophy of how to. You asked me where I was at with my week.
Right.
I'll just be trying to begin on that,
Yeah, right.
It's a way to, go move forward. Like move forward through your day and through your week and through your development. Yeah. Less like a measurement tool, Yeah.
So let's take that idea and go into your guitar playing.
Yeah, man.
So, like, um, you know, you, what happens when you pick up your guitar? You know?
Well, should we find
Yeah,
out?
let's find out. Let's find out.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. This is one of the things that I'm kind of getting more into, is just picking up and just playing kind of freely.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I was thinking of there is just the guitar has been sitting here, and I'm just trying to get in touch with my touch and in touch with the sound. And so in terms of those three layers, I'm thinking really in terms of like the physicality, like just understanding like where my body is at that moment. And but also not just doing something like like this is something that I like to do sometimes. Speaking of Holdsworth, you hear a lot of you hear a lot of stuff like that in his playing, which is like it's like shape oriented stuff. So but even when I do that, I'm trying to kind of use my ear with it. But that's a good way to get into your physical body, is just play the shape. So like all I'm really doing is I'm just playing like with 1, 3, and 4. I'm not even really thinking about a key or anything. Mm-hmm. But that this is kind of something that I would think of as being like purely physical. Uh-huh. And so not having any of the other elements like organizational or like phrasing necessarily involved in there. But even there, you don't, you could just kind of run up and down the neck. So what I was doing here, I started out, I just thought like it would be kind of cool to like, I just thought like it'd be cool. It'll give me a bar, and then I wonder just like what this fourth stack sounds like and feels like in the room. Uh-huh. I'm here. I have my headphones, so I can't like hear really that well. But what were you going to ask?
I was just going to ask you to describe. You just mentioned force, so that answered part of it. So yeah. You're playing a chord in force, and what's this? What's this like this line you're doing around it?
Oh yeah. So those are two separate things. So
okay.
What I was thinking about at first was I just started to kind of play something, and I think I played something that had a harmony that was moving and it went somewhere. So I was just trying to really just feel the instrument and feel like where I was in the room. So it's like this, we were talking before about like the physical, the organizational, and then this like spiritual, like getting in touch with phrasing. So I was, because, I'm cold.
Yeah.
Like, or I haven't played, I was just going to get in touch with like the physicality.
Yeah.
But I was trying to describe like how these other layers kind of creep into it, and I don't only think about the physicality.
Right.
And so so there was this sort of voice leading thing that ended up happening, and I was just playing freely. And that's as distinct from like really being what I was playing before. This is this kind of Holdsworthian thing. And it's sort of like a symmetrical pattern, not in terms of intervallically symmetrical, but in terms of like physically symmetrical. And that's not what I did. But if I really wanted to purely be like in the physical realm, I might play around with something like that. Another example would be, this is kind of a fun thing. You know, stuff like that, or like. This is me thinking about again like intervals. So like like fifth stacks, this kind of fifth stack, and then this is spanning a fourth on the guitar. So then groups of three notes plus one note, 3 notes plus 1 note. And the reason why I can do that and why it's physical and symmetrical is because I can say down, up, down, and then sweep to here. And then come back down. And then I can kind of work out those kinks in physical space. So this is like really purely physical. Like sometimes I might play something like that, but in this case, I'm really only thinking about the physical feel of like the guitar, and I'm trying to get like work on like also like the sound and like my time feel. Even if I'm playing like rubato, I'm still trying to work on like my time feel and like my rhythmic like drive and articulation. Even if I'm playing rubato, like if that, I'm not sure if that really makes a lot of sense because it sounds.
No, it makes sense. I just wonder if it's getting into the intellectual area, the cognitive area, because you're thinking of the fifths, you're thinking of, patterns in your right hand,
Yeah. So and here's why it's not. So I'm not categorizing it yet. I'm not actually thinking about the fifths. I'm just thinking about this with my hand.
Oh.
And so there's a symmetry here. It's really just a shape. It's physically, right? And so if I do something like this, I don't even like know what this is. And it's symmetrical, not like intervallically symmetrical, not like Slonimsky symmetrical, but it's symmetrical in terms of like every single string is just 4, 3, 1. But where the 3 and the 1 are separated by a minor third. So I'm like stretching my hand a little bit. And so that's the physicality, right? Now, if I'm from there, if I get into intellectual space, that's when I start to introduce organizing like harmony and putting this stuff onto like a musical form and a structure. So I might start to think about places that I could use this. So I might play like something like that, where, so now I'm thinking about like, okay, that time I was thinking about the form of a song called Alone Together, which is in D minor, right? So now I'm like that's what I mean by the cognitive.
Yeah.
So now I've got a key center and I've got all the places that it goes, and I've got like something to ground like these physical shapes. And I realized like I don't like the minor 7. Like this is like a huge like this is like a huge harmonic nerdery like
Oh, go
thing,
for it.
but I don't like if I'm playing this song, all the things you are. Oh no, Alone Together. There's a couple of harmonic things that I noticed that I did. So this will be the stuff that I think about that are like really bad. Like if I was like teaching myself, I would say don't do that. And like so, one of the things was I've noticed I played something like this. So I'm playing like a minor 7 sound on a D minor 1.
Yeah.
Don't ever do that on a song like this. Why? Because that minor 7, you're signaling especially in this case, you're signaling that it's a tension that needs to resolve somewhere. Even if the song functionally doesn't do that, this is not a stable sound, right? So we talk about this like minor 6 or minor major 7. That's a stable sound. So that would be. So that would be more the sound. So that was like one of the things that I noticed about like physically now. I'm tying the physical layer into this organizational layer, where like in my exercise I was thinking about this as a Dorian sound. It's not. It's a melodic minor sound. So now I'm thinking about, okay, I'm organizing that one chord as a melodic minor sound. The shape of it is then different on the guitar, right? Like the 7th is raised. So where if I had before, I'm just playing 5ths, sweeping them, and then I'm coming back up to go back down where I had this is a minor 7. This is the 1 sound. That's the 1 sound.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so like that's me then folding in the organizational layer into the physical layer. And then if I'm going to go a step further and then bring in this spiritual kind of breath layer, I might start by, like I'm warm, right? So I might start by just playing less. I might say, and really focus on like what I'm hearing and like singing through my soul. It sounds so kumbaya when you say it out loud.
When you translate the stuff into words, then it like sometimes it just kind of loses. It
loses
its thing, whatever it is. It's like it's not meant to be translated.
Yeah, it's totally not. It's like totally meant to be in private, But what I would do is I would really, interrogate the decisions that I'm making and make sure that my ear is the driver rather than my hand. So I'm like, and in reality, I actually saw this interview with John Batiste, and he made this beautiful point, like where he was talking about improvising. He was like, sometimes you just got to let your hand do what it wants to do. And I was like, dude, thank you for fucking saying that, man. Like, it's like, cause it's so true, right? It's like so true, but he has the balls to like say it because he's such a badass,
Yeah.
So like that, to me, that's like the physicality, right? So and in practice, you do have to let that in. But with the spiritual breath layer, a lot of this is taking out the hand and just really listening. So if I'm here, I'm really just trying to listen to where do I hear? And I usually get, And so I'm just really trying to like make decisions that, and sometimes I go wrong. Like sometimes I go wrong, but I'm trying to use my breath and my sense of phrasing, like really be connected to what is the next note, and do I have room for it in my breathing? If that makes, if this is making any sense.
No, it makes total sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah. And so really trying to, I'll go for something that I'll take a risk. Like I played, I played like a major 7. I got to a minor, G minor chord. And I remember, and I kind of played, this was a bad ear decision, but I played like both sevenths at the same time. But I noticed that it kind of felt, I don't know, it somehow felt how I felt in that time. So maybe it was like I was letting my subconscious in. This is something that I probably would have never played. It's not practical. It's not ergonomic. It kind of hurts. It's a big stretch. But it was like, I don't know, it wasn't a mistake, right? Because it's like, oh, like, I don't know, it's kind of like.
How'd you do it so quickly in the moment? Because, I mean, how do you explain that?
Oh man, yeah, that's a really good question. I think it comes from. I think what you're talking about is the art of improvising, and the art of like making these decisions and then executing them. And it's a combination of a lot of work just like this, like just what I just explained, of like going through in the practice room, like going through those 3 sort of domains of like really getting together like physically. You know, play like can I play sixths? Like in F major in a way, and then go away from that. And like, can I even just like do that? Like physically,
yeah.
Then can I do it in a way that like I understand harmonically, like the organizational framework of like what are the harmonies that I'm implying, and how might I use that on a form? Like I think I even did something like that in a turnaround or something. It's a very natural place to do it. If I'm if I'm in F and I'm just saying 3 6 2 5, I could just go. That would be A minor, D7, flat 9, G minor, C7, flat 9 to F. So that would be like, I've got physically I can play this, right? Physically I can do that, but like where could I do it on a song form? And how could I use it to make sense? And then there's this layer of the spirituality of like the breath, right? Of like how do I phrase it? That was how I was hearing it in my head just then. And so that's like in the practice room, right? But there's also, you have to have to really be like, to get to a higher level, you have to have lots of like experience. Because like, I mean, right now, the reality of it is like, there's an amplifier pointed at me. I've got like these headphones on, like we're together, but like there's a camera on,
there's a wall.
So like there's a wall, but like, but it's also, it's like, there's like an element of like pressure, I guess.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
There's an element of like, okay, it's like, we're going to record this, then it's like going out of my hands. So a lot of people will be like, in that situation, they'll just play safe. They don't feel like they would like some people just would never play that because they're not comfortable with the unknown, right? They're not comfortable with that unknown. And so that's where like the experience of like playing a lot with other people in rehearsals, and playing on all kinds of different gigs of all kinds of different, levels. Some of them like wallpaper jobs, some of them concerts, where people are like hanging on to every note, and the experience of like being comfortable with taking a risk, right? Because in reality, it's like with the spiritual element, I'm trying to be connected to absolutely everything. I'm trying to let the force, I used to call it like the brute force, because that used to be the only thing that I ever had. Because I didn't know very much about harmony, and I kind of sucked at the guitar. So it was only like, that's like the thing of like when you're just there and you just want something to come out, right? That's the spiritual, right? So that's what I mean when you're working on that, and you kind of have to. It takes a lot of experience and practice of being in that situation of being vulnerable, and getting like something together in those other two layers to commit to those decisions, to those each micro decision. But I'll say this too, and it's not thought. It's not in the realm of thought. And a lot of times that like urge to play something is actually not melodic or harmonic. Actually, it'll be rhythmic. Oftentimes, for me, it'll be in the realm of rhythm, and my ear and my intuition then takes over and kind of fills in, because of the work that I did, especially in that middle layer, the organizational layer. It kind of fills in information most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time that makes sense with the harmony, and the voice leading becomes okay and good. So it's not in the realm of like, I'm not thinking about like categorically like what is the harmony of this song,
right?
What is the harmony of this this movement right now? I'm actually just thinking like, I'm like, I don't know like what's gonna come out like necessarily, but I'm not like guiding all of that those decisions like with my intellectual like thinking brain. Like the one thing that I am kind of guiding in real time is like, do I want to play a short phrase or a staccato phrase? Like that time I really wanted to. This is what we do when we want to emphasize rhythm, is we want to emphasize the front ends of the attack. So I was thinking, short. I keep on doing that. That was the other decision that I wanted to say. So this chord, a lot of people play a 2-5 to A, and then 2-5 to F. Really, the harmony is not that. It's actually this. It's actually this like diminished chord, like E7 flat 9, almost. So that's something that I just noticed that I kept on doing. But I kept on making the decision because I'm not thinking about that. But that's to say, like, where does the decision come from in real time? Well, it doesn't necessarily come from that intellectual organizational part. It actually, like, the thing that's driving the decision is the sort of the rhythmic placeholder. If does that make sense?
Yeah, it's kind of like it feels like that's the anchor. Like you anchor on the rhythm. Like it's almost like a starting place, like a launching, somewhere, from the rhythmic area, and then the other stuff falls into place. Is that what you're saying?
Totally. I think exactly right. I should have just said that.
No, it's okay. It's okay. No, it's amazing. Yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like what you're playing is like it is again, it's like this beyond words thing that's going on.
Thanks,
you know.
Man.
You know. So it's truly amazing of what is coming out out through your hands and through your body and things like that. And so just naturally, you know, there's a natural, you know, sense to it, and it's, you know, it's so in tune with like of what people do the best. When you find that someone's doing something like they really know how to do, and that's really a part of them, like there's an essence to that, to like, you know, and it, you know, in your case, it's like the guitar playing, you know, and of course we can categorize it, but it's, you're playing the guitar, you know, and you're playing music, you know, and but you know, you got someone else that could be just like a computer whiz, you know, and you know, that's their natural being. Like they're so natural of, you know, wow, they can code stuff and, you know, you know, create, you know, Microsoft, you know, so
yeah,
you know, it's like, yeah, people are so, you know, it's like this natural thing about it. So it's just it's so beautiful to hear you play and do your best to put it into words, because it's so hard to put it into words, you know, these things that we do, that we know we do really well. We just don't know how to say it, you know, and so, I mean, that's, you know, part of the reason why we're here is just see what can we do? Can we peel back these layers? You know, you know, can we do that? How do we do that? You know, you know?
Yeah.
And
yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah. Well, continue. I didn't want to.
No. It's cool. It's just I'm in awe of just of this. I've always been, you know, personally very fascinated by like jazz guitar playing, and I can do a little bit of it, you know, but you know, I will be honest. It's like, you know, it's a different language. It's a different language. You know, I studied classical guitar, and you know, very classical guitar pedagogy, and that's its own language, and you know, and learning that way of thinking and feeling and executing, and you know, it's its own thing. It's like, and then you have like this world of jazz, and that's its own language too, and it's just remarkable of how it's like it's all music and it's all great, but it's a different language. You know what I'm saying?
I do totally know what you're saying. Yeah, there's something that you said that was really interesting though to me that I would like to go back to and unpack a little bit, because I actually do think about it a lot. And it's this, you're saying the people who are in their natural state, and it tends to like trickle down into like a very particular discipline. So this is something that's like really interesting to me. And because I also am, it also ties into your characterization of classical guitar versus jazz guitar, like commercial, you know, guitar could be looped into that as well, as being different languages too. But I think that there's this, I mean, absolutely, you're right. Like, and most people who get to a high level at something, it's like there's one discipline, right? It's like they're classical guitar players or they're jazz guitar players, or you kind of were alluding to like a Bill Gates, like some genius like programmer. And it doesn't tend to be, I think about this all the time, actually. It's like there was in time of history, this notion of a Renaissance person, somebody like Michelangelo, like who was apparently a pretty killing musician. Like, we don't have recordings of his playing, obviously.
Yeah.
But like, apparently he was like a pretty good musician. like he could hang with the cats that were like pros at that time, like in the courts or whatever. And obviously an amazing scientific mind. Most people know him for his painting. But he had reached actually, and not just him. I think it was a time where this was more common. People were more cross discipline and deep, like they had breadth and they also had depth, and that is really fascinating to me because I have a lot of various interests in addition to like the just the regular like human being aspect of it, and like just being a parent and being a husband, and I would loop that into it too, right? Like and it's something that I think that if we can, I try to do this a lot, if we can think of in a sufficient layer of abstraction, right, such that we could apply this kind of backing like soul force to like whatever we're doing, and then fill in the context, and but if we could back up enough conceptually to such that we kind of become these open capacity vessels for like our ability to go deep into various different things, that to me, that's like what's really interesting, so I think that what you're saying is absolutely true. There's distinct linguistic differences between I would say it's those three layers, really, like the phrasing, the way that you organize things on the instrument, and the way that you physically play is the most obvious. Most people see this whole right hand thing is like, that's like a huge deal. If you just let's just do this. Like you put your hand up the camera and look at mine. Yeah. See? That says it all right there, man. Look at those beauties, man.
I know. They are a little long, but and that's usually a sign of something. But But,
you know what they say? Long fingernail. No,
that's not what I meant. I could practice a little more. Let's say that.
I see what you mean. Yeah. It's like a pick. It gets like worn down. Yeah, that's right. Cool. But I mean, physically, it's a whole different like method of producing sound, right? So, right. Absolutely. But I think that there is a layer of abstraction too that you consciously you could develop. Like if you're curious about both. I was avidly discouraged from taking classical guitar seriously. I think I am grateful for that in some respects because I didn't really have time, to get physically prepared to really, do it at any sort of level. But so I'm reinforcing what you're saying, but I also do think that there is a level of abstraction that you could attain as a human to give yourself capacity to go. I don't think it's like fate or like written in the stars or something that you only have to do like one thing. Yeah, and that you're pure, the purest expression of like I really appreciate you saying that, and I feel that when I play, I feel that I'm processing, like this isn't going in. But I'm not thinking about, who's great at talking about this is Eric Gales. Cause like the way that he says it is like how I feel about it. He's like, he'll talk about this and he'll like get emotional. He'll be like, I just think about like when I'm playing, I think about the grief, my unprocessed grief. And I think about like my depression and my issues, my addiction. And I think about what I can do better like tomorrow for my relationships. And, that's kind of, that really to me is verbalizing the most natural expression of your truest humanity. And yes, I've worked really hard and think about that a lot, is when I play, it's like a pressure valve for all that shit to come out. Right. But I don't think that there's some thing where that's the only, that was the only thing that I could have ever done or something like that. It's like I think that there's a layer of abstraction that you could get, you could come away from the thing, and you could use that to organize your ability to gain mastery in other, if you had time.
Yeah.
Like somebody like a Da Vinci, and who was like the highest level cat. I was like all of these different things, all of these multidisciplinary, things. And I just wanted to make that point because I think about that a lot, and it's really interesting to me.
It's almost like an aim to be a musical polymath. Like, yeah. And there's a few like notable artists out there that can cross over,
Sure.
And
sure.
Yeah.
Herbie Hancock is the example that always comes up amongst jazz musicians. He has an undergraduate degree in electrical engineering, I believe. And
really, I didn't know.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, and I don't think that he has professionally done very much with it, but like it's like obvious in his curiosities and the way that he has structured some of those records that he did. Was stuff with like the vocoder, like Sunlight, and is that what that record's called? With Just Come Running to Me is on that, and it's like obvious that he has that propensity, but that's somebody that comes to mind. And I think Joshua Redman has like a law degree or something from like Harvard,
right?
Something like that, I mean, not music for sure. I know Aaron Goldberg is another piano player that I think his thing is like it's maybe psychology or neuroscience, something like that. There's another amazing jazz piano player in New York who has a degree in like astrophysics or something.
Yeah.
Dan Tepper is amazing.
Well, it's like Brian May. Brian May has.
Well, Brian May's did you mention that the other day too? When we were talking.
I don't think so. But it was.
Oh yeah.
It was in line
that came
with
up.
what we were talking about, but I don't know if I mentioned it.
Yeah, that's come up in conversation, in some conversation that I had. I thought maybe it was with you. It could have been with somebody else though, but that very thing. Yeah, Brian May. It's particle physics, right? He's like a particle physicist.
Yeah, I think so.
That. Something like that.
So. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, talking about this kind of like how the brain works, like, in our interests, right? How the interests and, it's, a lot of us have so many interests outside of music, but like there's somewhere some mysterious connection between these outside things of music, and then doing music well, and at the same time, it's an interesting angle. Yeah.
Dude, I would say that it's not somewhere. I would say that now you're getting to the realm of what it means to be an artist, right? Which is something like that I strive for. I'm not very far in like actually, building an audience for myself or whatever, but I do think about this, and I think that an artist is somebody who can viscerally make those connections, like for you, so what that makes the music about so much more than just what it's about. It's like, it's almost like the key to writing good dialogue is to never say what the conversation is about. It's all subtext, right? It's you're presenting the world through this you're presenting the world through your lens of, it's not just the music, it's not just how you look at D minor. It's actually, and it's not explicit either, but it's like there's like a depth there that you are exposing that. I think that is one of the most visceral kinds of experiences of true artistry, that is when I hear it, like that it's like obvious to me that it's about so much more than what is explicitly being played.
Yeah, and it's interesting how that's done through instrumental music,
Yeah, totally.
right?
Yeah.
And
Totally.
and sometimes we can base it off the title of the chart or something, but that's only one part of it.
Totally, man. Yeah. Also, like instrumental music, you're saying too. Also, like etude. Sometimes, like etudes are like that. Like I think about it's the Leo Brow, the way that whatever he ends up doing, this kind of shit. Like whatever he, I can't remember. You probably know that shit. You know what I mean?
I haven't played
the
it
Leo
in a while,
Brower
but
thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, and like he gets all up here, whatever he does, like to me, that's like, and it's like an etude, right?
Yeah,
but it's
right.
to me, it's like so emotive, and I don't know what he was feeling, or I don't know if he's probably not reading about astrophysics or something. But I do know that when I listen to that, like somebody like yourself, like playing that really well, it gives me a sense of awe when I look at the night sky. It just like, I think that's what we're talking about,
Yeah.
Yeah.
When this music evokes a memory,
Wow. Yeah.
yeah, or like the feeling of that memory.
The sense memory.
The sense. Yeah.
Absolutely. Beautiful, man.
Yeah. Interesting. Wow. How beautiful. Yeah. And so I like to pivot here,
Sure. Yeah.
if you don't mind.
Not at all.
How you feeling?
I feel great, bro.
Good.
I feel good. This is wonderful for me.
This is awesome.
I really appreciate you asking me to do this. I'm having a great time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love you too, man. We should be in
Yeah.
touch more, dude. Like, you're one of those people. You're good at it. Like, every now and then you reach out, and I'm always like, oh yeah, I love this cat, man.
Yeah, we were talking about that the other day, like how the importance of keeping up,
Totally.
and it gets away from us, just with everyday life, how busy we are, and all the things going on and stuff like that. That whatever it is, sometimes it's hard to keep in touch, and it's like you think of the person, but you don't always reach out, and and I thought of you for this, when I was thinking this whole thing about the Pluck, just bringing in these, having these conversations about everything that we do as Pluck string players, like guitarists and whatever. But it's a pretty wide field, and I was like, well, I'd love to have someone who's like a jazz guy, and you're like my first thought. So,
Oh, man, thank you, man. You got to listen to some more music, bro. I got to send you some records, man.
yeah, man. Yeah. Well, it helped that I knew you.
Yeah,
it's like,
that's for sure.
Going back to
I
Shenandoah.
get it. Yeah. I totally get it, man. Yeah.
Right.
Thank you, man. It means a lot. Yeah, it's really cool. Yeah, it's a funny thing too. Like I just thinking about the guitar angle, like it's for me, it's like an angle that I don't know, I have like a complex relationship with, but without like realizing that I do. Like coming into the whole thing of like learning how to do it at a high level or like whatever, learning how to do it well, being like really interested in it. A lot of the things that really got me like really curious and focused were things that were not actually played by guitar players. They were played by piano players or saxophonists or especially the jazz canon. It's like, I mean, there's some incredible guitarists in the jazz canon, don't get me wrong. But a lot of like the groundbreaking music that, the really like cutting edge stuff, maybe until like recently with Rosenwinkel, maybe, around the 2000s, you could kind of make an argument for Rosenwinkel like playing linguistically in a way that was like, pushing the language forward. But other than that, since Charlie Christian, Charlie Christian was this musician that pushed the guys who came up with bebop into bebop rhythmically. With this eighth note propulsion, this kind of angularity and syncopation and nuance in the eighth note line and harmonic descriptiveness in the eighth note line, but like still a melodic shape and sense. He was the kind of like the cat for them. And then since then, it's like there's this historical period where it's mostly like saxophonists, pianists, and like that are like pushing the language forward. Everybody talks about Bird, Charlie Parker. Obviously, he was one of those guys. And then moving forward, Train, was another saxophonist and. But like after that Brecker, and then maybe after that like Mark Turner, and I'm probably missing. When you start naming names, it's always a hard thing. Tough. But like, getting into this point of like the guitar. I play the guitar, but most of the music that I've studied for a long time was not like guitar players. In terms of the way that the music was organized. And that has been and then when I was coming up too, there was this guy who's like famous now. I think we're the same age, but speaking about like cats that like are doing it, Julian Lodge. I think we were both born in 88. Maybe he was even born in 89. But he is this amazing guitarist, and he sounds like a guitarist. Like the things that he plays are somehow nobody else plays like that, but they're also somehow like so idiomatic to the instrument. And that's something that I've been thinking about lately too, because a lot of like what I try to do and the way that I hear is just a function of the way that I've developed, is like not idiomatic. And that thing, that Holdsworthy kind of thing, because it comes out of the Train thing, it really resonates with me. And it's in some ways you could make maybe an argument that his thing is, shapy and guitar-y in certain ways, but it's certainly not in the way that Julian's playing is. Julian will play like. He'll play all that stuff, like stuff like that. I don't know. I can't do him. Only he could do him.
Yeah, I love that.
But it's like it's like very rooted into the history of the way that people play the guitar, and it is idiomatic in to the guitar. You know, the doing something like that, like a double stop. You know, it's just very like even Hendrix. You can't even say it's country or something like that. It's like even Hendrix would do that kind of thing. That's, you know, right? That's the same thing. That kind of stuff, you know, that's like to me, that's like idiomatic guitar-y. That's Hendrix's flavor on that bluesy country thing. But Julian has that, you know, and that's something that I wouldn't say I consciously avoided it, but it was something that when I heard him doing like what he's doing, especially when he started to play with the telly, it was like, I was just like, oh yeah, like I had neglected like all of that.
Yeah.
know? Like, I totally like just, you know, and you know, then start to kind of get back into that. And it's an important thing. Like it's an important aspect of it. Like, you know, I know your whole thing here is rooted around this is kind of the entry point, right? It's like the plucked instruments, so the guitar or the banjo or the mando or the, you know, hopefully you have all these kinds of people coming in there.
Yeah.
And there are these ways to play these instruments that are, you know, at one time, you know, idiomatic, but at the other time, you know, they're kind of your own touch and your own sound concept. Like he's a perfect example of somebody who has just this pure expression that is like synonymous with the instrument, which is so deep and heavy and like very, almost in a way, very, very grounded in that kind of like the classical sort of, you know, classical musicians or what we call, you know, classical musicians are kind of like that in a sense, right? Like just so masters of their instrument, and what they can do is idiomatic to their instrument. And so much of what I've tried to doing and been struggling is like, yeah, go ahead.
Can you explain like what you said something about being unidiomatic? Like the way you play. Can you explain what that means, or give an example?
I'll totally like, I mean, so like let's say like I'm thinking about this. This is a tune called Invitation. I might like want to play something like this. You know, so it's like, but what I was thinking is at first was this kind of idea that going from here to here in a way that's, I don't know. I would make an argument that that's not idiomatic. That's something that I had to kind of work on a lot.
Okay.
Because I would hear like Michael Brecker or like, you know, like McCoy be like these larger intervals, right?
Yeah.
That would be something that's like not idiomatic. Whereas, you know, something that's like all of that is like just like right there, you know, this, especially this thing. It's all right there, you know. It's like it kind of going back to that original thing. It's sort of all in this sort of E derived open chord, like C shape, and the it's what's more natural than that. It's like written for the guitar,
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? It just lays well.
Can you play in the same style but in that unidiomatic way?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So if I was gonna go like 2, 3, 4. Yeah. Whatever, you see what I mean? Like angular and I kind of found ways to play that, and there's people who can there's people out there who can do all kinds of stuff, but there's some things like the ways to like organize it in a way that the wide interval thing that is like manageable. And one of those, I kind of alluded to it before, is this: if you take like a pentatonic scale and you kind of, most people know this shape, and most people know this shape. This is like the second box on the guitar. And if you kind of like put them together, play 3 notes on one string, 1 note on the second string, and then 3 notes, you're automatically going to get some more of that like fourthy stuff. And then the double notes, which is a very saxophony thing.
Because of a different like key.
Yeah, because when I've got this box here, I've got the B flat here, but I'm combining it with this box. So now I'm getting into the physical thing, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But I'm getting into the organizational thing, whereas I'm like using it over blues. And then roping back into that like sort of spirituality, like phrasing is like, what? How am I going to do it? It reminds me of one of my favorite piano players of all time is Mulgrew Miller, and Mulgrew Miller is like one of these players that he's an incredible improviser. Like don't get me wrong, like, he was an incredible improviser, but he would play stuff that like you knew was worked out. Like there's because you'd heard it. Like he had like he had language and he had phrases that he would reuse. But the way that he would play it was like, in a way, the way that he would place it on a form, it was like still fresh and surprising and inevitable all at the same time. You'd be surprised, but it has this feeling of inevitability. And so when I'm doing stuff like that, like I'm kind of forcing it in there, but I'm always thinking about like Mulgrew in that way of like, I'm forcing something in there. So it's like, am I like improvising? I don't know. This is like gets into a really
weird kind of gray area of like, do you pre-plan, or do you play like licks, or what do you do? I don't know, but all I know for that is I try to just think about like how to play this thing in a way that's like natural, in a sense. I'm trying to not have it sound like, hey, here's something that I practice.
Right.
I'm trying to have it sound like a melody that's like has movement and inevitability. I just unplugged my guitar by accident. But sorry.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So, yeah, I can't even remember what your question.
Well, it was trying to figure out what you meant by unidiomatic.
Oh yeah, that's what we were talking about. Yeah, so like if I was gonna play in a way that was, or actually I could play like more in a straight bebop way too, and show you a little bit of that too. So like if I want to. That to me is more, it's not necessarily idiomatic to the guitar, but it's like more based on language that was developed in this kind of collective, cohesive, melting pot, boiling pot that was like Harlem in jam sessions in the 1940s. And mostly by people who actually really played like that, which was different from how like Charlie Christian might play. It was like Charlie Christian might play in a way that really is more idiomatic to the guitar, in that it's more triadic. So he might play something more like this. So he's playing like more triads that lay on the guitar, and like scales, and some like chromaticism in there, like that kind of lays, a little bit more on the guitar. Whereas when you get into bebop, you get these like kind of weird, like larger interval leaps, And they don't always, and now it's not necessarily idiomatic in the sense that you don't hear a lot of guitar players playing like that in history, but you can make it more idiomatic in as much as like I'm not moving my hand very much, like I'm playing like in position. I've kind of figured out ways I haven't worked any of that out. I didn't know what I was going to play, but I'm kind of playing in these scale shapes. So it's into the idiom of the guitar, even though it's like not idiomatic to the guitar in as much as it was like written for a guitar or written by a guitar player. But it's like you can put stuff like that on the guitar in a way that lays pretty well and work out like your right hand and left hand coordination, whether you're playing legato or not or whatever. There's ways where you can make it lay. Whereas something that's really not idiomatic is something that you have to really like work towards. It's something that just really does not lay well. So what I was talking about, that kind of thing would be like lines like stuff that I would hear like something maybe like Keith Jarrett doing. And it's like, well, all I'm kind of really doing is I'm really just thinking about this C7, and I'm just thinking about this tonic, and I'm just thinking angularly how to create direction and movement towards that pitch. And I hit like every C between here and you know,
on every
right?
string.
And so that to me is not idiomatic, and it never will be. It's like if you're gonna play that way, you really have to investigate, especially like that physical layer of like how do you even like just make the sound happen? And then you also have to understand like the intellectual layer, like where does that come on in terms of a song form, right? And the physical layer too has to do with like tempo and stuff. It's like there's tempos where I could kind of play like really fast, like a bebop tempo, because it's like local, and it's not idiomatic to the guitar, but I can put it into my caged system, or I can put it into some system that we have as guitar players that we can organize. So, from that, and that I know that I can kind of move around with facility with. This other thing is like there's kind of systems, sort of, but not really. It like sort of breaks a lot of the conventions. There's a lot of jumping around, and it's more about the melodic, like thing. But whereas it's stuff that on a piano, it's really not that hard, or on a saxophone, sometimes you get this like angularity, and it does lay. So like the tempo would not be an issue. For how those kinds of lines could be expressed. And so that was really what I was talking about. It's like it's kind of idiomatic. Is a complex word, but I guess I'm using it in ways that of like, how does it lay, and can I make it like, can I work it into a system of organization on the guitar that like we already have. Like a 3-note per string scale, for example, or a box, or a position, or is it something that I'm actually really like just following the interval structure on a single string, which is sometimes that's what that stuff ends up being, Yeah, that's a really good question. It's a really interesting question.
Yeah. The whole thing about what's idiomatic or not, there's like a fuzzy gray area
totally
about that, and
totally,
yeah, and it's
totally,
yeah,
man. I have something on that, man, because you guys, you classical guys, like you have pedagogy, right? You have like various methodologies. And for jazz musicians, especially jazz guitar players, but even blues and rock guitar players, like maybe nowadays there's more pedagogical things, but like there's not really like that same, like there's schools of thought, right? So you have someone like Matheny, who he develops his kind of this very personal, like really, really developed, but it's like really personal approach to how do you kind of play arpeggios and scales and organize, like, like the like there's things that he does that's like this, and then he does like the Pat Metheny yodel.
I didn't know that's what it was called.
Yeah, the Pat Metheny yodel. I'm not very good at it, but he does it like so fast, and he's kind of doing like a saxophone-y thing, but it's like he's figured out, and it's what it is. It'll be like, I think this is how he does it. He's like pick, 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 and then he hammers on from nowhere. And then this line is, there's hammer-ons from nowhere, right? So he has these like ways of playing these things that he plays which to him, they're idiomatic to him in his own way of playing. And it kind of does lay like when you get the system, but it's like, that's like not, you know, the only way that I know that is because like I watched like YouTube videos of him and like slow, you know, like looked at exactly like, what is he doing? What is that thing that, you know, he does all the time?
Yeah.
And but it's not like there's you know, some pedagogy book where there's an exercise, you know,
Right. Right. Or an etude
to do that
or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like what is idiomatic is so much more, it's so much more like subjective and personal. You know, in our world, maybe then, not to say that there's not uniqueness and individuality, but like you guys have like at least directionality in terms of your pedagogy, and we don't. We don't have that.
Yeah, but it's like a whole different approach to the instrument. I find, you know, it's a whole different approach. You know, at least traditionally. You know, yeah, because I mean, you mentioned so much about your earliest years, like you know, learning stuff by ear and things like that, and where like a classical guitarist starts, you know, they start with like, you know, reading like the first string, open string, just like you know, pluck, 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 just reading the notes. And just doing repetition of reading those notes and getting the right technique and putting your hand in the right place and things like that. It starts with reading. It doesn't, like, it usually doesn't start with listening unless you're exposed to it. You know, you're exposed to like classical guitarists and this is what they sound like, and that's cool. Or you go to concerts. You know, when I was younger, I grew up in a city where classical guitar was very prevalent at the local university, at Stetson University, where I did my undergrad. And, you know, and I, you know, started with a classical guitar teacher and in that school. And then there were like guitar workshops every year that I would go to. So I was exposed to that in person, you know? And so that's where I heard it. Yeah. But
Beautiful. Yeah.
But for like, you know, jazz and rock and commercial music and stuff like that, usually that is picked up by like, you know, hearing records or going to clubs and like hearing it and then taking what you're hearing and then learning the instrument. So it doesn't come from a long line of structure, you know, that's been written down. Yeah.
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, that's such an interesting thing that you mentioned, and of like how you're exposed to it, the world of classical guitar, you know, in general, and also, you know, my similar, like coming in from another angle, and what is really interesting to me that I think about a lot is like, you know, what is the place like in the society, like at large, for the arts, right? And I think a lot of us are exposed to music nowadays through education, especially these kinds of music that we end up playing. Maybe this is like an obvious statement, you know? But it's like we're exposed to it through the schools or through teachers, like private teachers.
Yes.
And we're less exposed to it like through the marketplace or like through our community.
Yes.
Right, with the exception of people that came up in the church, you know, which is not me, and I don't think it's you either, right? You know, but that's like one exception of like maybe in the current like modern world of kids getting exposed to music from their community members, right? But it's like a really interesting kind of thing in terms of then how does it pervade and percolate into the rest of our lives. And yeah, it's just an interesting point that I think about. It's like, it leads to this other question of kind of like how can we, or what sort of is the purpose of what we're what we're doing, like, you know, and how can we share it appropriately, you know, which is really an important thing about like what you're doing with this, you know, doing a podcast is a great, you know, kind of modern way to get people exposed, you know, to something. But the point is that they're not being exposed to it by the marketplace, or they're not being exposed to it by their communities, you know, which is like, you know, it's like really interesting to think about, like, because we dedicate so much of our lives to it, you know.
Yeah, because we're in it. We're in the field, right? Like we're in that field and we can see it, but like on the outside, it's like, you know, music is not just for us, but it's for everyone who doesn't play music too, you know. And
absolutely,
and the exposure of that music, I mean, where does that come from? It comes from community. It comes from the community. It comes from school. You know, it comes from, you know, the internet, you know, finding it online and stuff, you know. But there's a friction now about the internet, you know. I know with the younger generation, there's some friction going on, and I've read reports about this, like wanting to go out to actually like experience things, you know, getting away from our screens, you know, and things like that.
Yeah.
So I feel like speaking of the Renaissance you were talking about earlier, right? Speaking of the Renaissance, like I feel like we could be going through some kind of Renaissance in a way, you know, especially in our arts. That we could, if in areas where it's not lively enough, we could bring more awareness to live music for all ages, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah. I feel passionate about that too. And like, also, like, I've also read that too. I think that there's a push in the younger generation of some younger kids are like, they're not buying the racket, right?
Yeah.
they're like, this isn't the real world, right? They understand, you know, the human body is like primarily water, right? I mean, so in the way that sound travels through water is like really incredible. Like in other words, it travels through you. And so I think it is a visceral experience for somebody who's only ever experienced music, you know, from something like this, when they actually somehow get into a room, and they feel, you know, they feel I took my kids to see Peter Bernstein with Mike Ledon, an incredible organist, and he had a B3 that he rented, and it's just like, you know, just because I wanted them to feel the organ, you know, and it was so cool, you know, and so I think that you're right. Like maybe so. I don't have as much optimism that, you know, the market powers are gonna, like, you know, bend over so quickly in. But it is something that is something that we can do, is you know, organize in terms of like smaller kind of concerts, local concerts, and make them like available and affordable to people, you know, just in the local community. I mean, that's something that some local communities do really well. And it's such an important thing, like just to expose people, you know, to expose people to especially these kinds of music that aren't like commodified so well. It's really challenging for that to, like, you know, certain types of music, the kind of music that you're so incredible at, you know. And the kind of music that I've dedicated my life to like commodify it in a way, in some sense, there was a time for it, you know, in the marketplace, and you know, it's interesting to be a composer and a writer and an arranger of music in this time, to kind of try to carve out, the people that are actually willing to come to your like to your show, or
Yeah.
willing to, exchange money for for the product,
Yeah, for the
because it's hard to commodify it. It's like, it's not really what we're offering is not really a commodity. It's actually, like you said, it's like an experience, and it's the flow state. It's
To
come
experience
join me
that.
in communion with this.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we're not
it's hard to market that.
we're selling something that's intangible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
You can't physically hold the sound of music in your hand.
That's right. Right.
Yeah, like-
That's right.
Like you can't hold it. You can't feel it with your touch, sense. You can't do that.
It's ephemeral too, in a sense, right? Like, that's one of the beautiful things about it. It can, I think that's one of the things about it that's so powerful in terms of its ability to draw you into the present moment, is that it is an ephemeral experience, right? It moves through time. And your body today is also moving through time. So even your relationship with recordings is ephemeral, right? In a sense, because you're not the same, you're not the same atoms that you were a decade ago. But you've probably been listening to some of the same recordings. So that's a really interesting thing, but it's really hard to package that. I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's hard, but it is really important to expose it as much as we can to like community type concerts, or like local like bar gigs. Even,
Yeah. Well, and
get out there and play the shit that's not like on the radio. Yeah.
and education, like the exposure at a young age, in schools
Yeah.
and stuff. The importance of arts in the schools.
Absolutely.
And God bless the teachers, for sure, the music teachers, and just how much they provide for the students there, through bringing
A thankless job.
Yeah.
sometimes.
yeah, it is, and I'll just say briefly, I had a couple years of experience I told you about. Yeah. And there's a lot of joy that these students, I can sense that their joy, from not just learning the music, but like witnessing it and being exposed to it, or experiencing it even from their teacher, like just watching their teacher play. And we know that experience watching our teachers play,
Absolutely.
There's something really special about that. And then you have like a guest. If you have a guest at a school, that's another experience for them. And all these like little kind of droplets of these chances for a younger mind and soul to witness art, perhaps be inspired by it, perhaps to try it on their own, perhaps to support it later in life. If they never do it, then they can support it. A lot of it starts at such a young age. When we don't have like the adult world like pressing down on us, or keeping us busy. That education, that age is so important.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for our music and for them and our community and society and just us as humans, and it's so
Absolutely.
important.
Yeah, it's such a funny thing. It's because there's this other thing. I think I heard Kenny Werner say this, like, and this probably applies to all types of music, but he was talking about jazz music in particular. Education is such a fertile ground for people to be exposed to music that's not commercial at the time, because it's one of these things that when you learn about it, like you get that feeling that you just described of when you're a kid and you watch your teacher pick up a guitar, and it's just like the coolest thing. Like your thought in at that moment, and your thought in those kinds of moments as they follow you through your life is not, I want to go buy that thing, or I want. Your thought is, I got to learn how to do that. Like I need to like know how to like.
Yeah.
I need to learn about it. I need to like learn. I think that maybe that's like not a universal thing. Maybe that's just what people like us think. But it does speak to like the power of like the coupling of education and exposure, like in general. Because I do think that there is that visceral thing of like when it first grabs you and it first takes you in, your instinct in general, at least mine was, and I know that this is true for a lot of people, just through talking to other people and saying, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And the way that Kenny Werner expressed it too is like that. It's like you hear this thing and you wanna learn it. You don't necessarily, because a kid who's exposed to candy or something is going to be like, they want to have it and eat it, but in order to do that, they have to buy it. So they want to buy the candy, right? Whereas like you could make the same argument. It's like you could have the experience. You could say, oh, I'm a child, like I want to have this, I want to have that and take it in. I want to have it and eat and listen to it. Auditorily eat it.
Yeah.
So I buy the record. But that's not what happens. It's like I want to learn how to like make that. A kid doesn't eat an M&M and say I want to be a chocolatier.
Yeah. Or I want to make M&Ms.
Yeah. They want to take in more of it. This is something actually that's kind of palpable. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. Ooh, very cool. Man.
Dude.
We'll have to do part 2 and 3 and 4. And
bro, I would love to. Yeah, I would love to talk to get more about your. I hope somebody does that or on your show. Get more like information about you. Mm-hmm. And you have so much to offer, man. For sure.
This is my second time recording a podcast.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So my second episode, let's say. So
cool.
So I've been cautious just about how much I speak for one, and then how much I say about myself, because it's about the guests. It's not about me. But I understand we gotta have some conversation too. So yeah. So I try to keep it in balance.
No, that's really interesting. There's this great documentary. I like it a lot. It's called Stutz. It's that Jonah Hill did it about his therapist, Paul Stutz.
Oh.
And like it's on Netflix now. It came out in like 2022, but it's a really great documentary. First of all, just like in general, but
yeah.
It is really, really, really heavy the way that it's like the way that the therapist kind of explains to Jonah, like that the interviewer is actually the kind of the hero.
Oh.
Or at least that he has to, in order for the thing to get like to really have substance, he has to find a way to inject himself. Inject like information about himself and his past too. So I encourage you to check that out and like, kind of not saying like, you did a great job, man. Yeah, this is great. And we didn't even talk about writing at all. I would love to talk about that at some point with you, man.
We could do another one on writing for sure. Yeah.
Great. Like a specific, like only, Yeah. Oh man, that's probably the only way to do that.
Yeah,
No.
consider this like this is like opening the door, your
Yeah,
conversation.
sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
And arranging too, right? Arranging,
yeah.
right? Because like so many guitar players, like somebody or string players, right? Because we have the advantage of like kind of having all the harmony there, similar to the piano. Like so many guitar players, like they write, they can write because the entry point is like we don't have to think that much about how to build chords and stuff. So and nowadays with like Sibelius and Dorico, the entry point to actually writing digital, music in a software engine is it just makes it there's so little friction, and it might be an interesting thing, to have that like an arranger track, and in particular like an arranger track, right? Like, and a composer track too. Composition is very rich area because like you were kind of you were showing me. I guess it's the only other episode, but you were that was really powerful. The way that you guys talked about the way to like write for a specific person on the guitar.
Yeah.
And that the composer coming over, or the guitarist going over to the composers and collaborating, like
working together.
That whole
Yeah.
there's there's the guitar stuff, but then there's also just the world of like composition, like the world of music that you can play on the guitar that's not necessarily written for the guitar.
Yeah.
So that's really fertile too, and it's hard to like cram it all in.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah.
And I'd love to talk more on that. And it's interesting. I guess this is the first experience, and it's only the second episode, but it's the first experience where I feel like we need more time. And
oh yeah.
And but not saying that I didn't need more time with the first one, but Jason is a super busy guy, touring and all sorts of stuff, and I know we all have our things, but it reminds me of a conversation I had with one of my mentors who said like, yeah, like you could record the podcast, but like, split it up because you're going to have a lot to talk about, and he's right.
Yeah,
he's right.
Absolutely.
To cover this world. And also I see it too, I'll kind of speak openly here. And that is like, this is meant to be a resource for those who are curious, of course, about the art of doing this. And that could be for the player, but it could be for the composer, someone who wants to write for it, someone who just wants to discover more, ways of seeing it, and things like that. And that it can evolve much further than us having the conversation. But, some of this we can notate, some of this we can compile into documents of some sorts, things like that. That's how I see it. That's how I see
totally,
it.
Man.
Yeah. So
that's awesome, man. It's great.
Yeah.
I'm like so humbled that you asked me to do it, and it was so much fun, and I'd definitely love to do it again.
Yes. Yes, definitely. I loved hearing you play. That was so cool.
Thanks, man.
That was so cool.
Thanks, man.
Sounded great. And
thank you, man. I love playing, man. So I love be cool to just do one of just playing, too.
Yeah. Right.
Get more into that, kind of get more into kind of talking about some different approaches and more practical, like kind of things. That's another possibility. Sometimes it's like in this forum, I'm not in it very often, but it seems like an opportunity to talk about like less like education oriented.
Yeah.
Like I'm not like trying to teach something.
Right.
I'm trying to talk about how I do things. Like really, like that was kind of how you started. It was like, what are you doing, and how do you think about the things? but it could, it could also be good to like, I could see that there could be value in some people coming to this platform and wanting like practical, a practical takeaway, something that wasn't so, what's the proper word? Like, I think of kumbaya, but it's not the right,
like on the fly.
Or like for me, it's like a personal thing. It's like some of the stuff that I was talking about is maybe, and it shouldn't. I wouldn't.
No.
I mean, I wouldn't want it to apply directly to somebody else.
Right.
Like it would be cool if they took something from it and then made it their own or whatever. But whereas like you could talk about, all right, here's how you could think about a C7, or like you could talk about those wide intervals, and it's like, well, here's how I actually like make that happen. Because there is the brass tacks element of it too. That's like another interesting avenue to explore, maybe. So
yes, yeah, definitely. Well, Michael, it was a really great pleasure to have you on the Pluck today and to share all of your wisdom and experience and stories, and hearing you play and hearing you try to put into words what's happening, with the guitar in your hands. It's really beautiful stuff. And so thank you so much, Michael. And
thank you so much for having me, Jonathan. It's honored. Thank you.
Until next time. All right. Take care.
Yeah, take care.